Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Courage Economy podcast. We're on episode 6, I believe. I was told that before I start, I should ask everybody to pound the like button and hit the subscription button and the little bell. So that would be good. Um, if you like this content and you find that the Courage Economy is useful, please share it with you, everybody. Um, so we've covered a lot of ground over the first 5 episodes. We've introduced what the Courage Economy is. We've introduced why important work is critically important to making sure that we don't develop a lie economy. We've talked about why the Courage Economy is the antidote to the lie economy. We've talked about why curiosity is critically important. That the next step typically would be to talk about why challenge is so important in a courage economy. That would be the third pillar of the courage economy framework. The first two are important work, curiosity, challenge, and then the two next pillars are actually outcomes, trust, and community. Today, I want to talk about, though, designed productive struggle and why that's critically important to the creation of a courage economy. Design productive struggle is designing work that requires courage. So, in other words, it's not enough to ask people to be courageous because they won't. We've talked about in the first couple of episodes the will. The will is strong. It encourages people to do whatever they can do to advance themselves, to advance their career, to build more power and prestige in their organization. And we've also talked about comfort. Comfort is the main driver of the lie economy. We want a frictionless organization where no one's feeling get hurt and we all get along. Those two conspire to create a lie economy. And so it's not enough to ask people to be courageous because the environment in which they work does not allow them to be courageous. They can't tell the truth if telling the truth is costly to them. And so they lie. And we talked about this word lie. It sounds terrible. It is terrible. But when we talk about a lie economy, it's made up of all of the lies, the half truth, the white lies, the fibs, the omissions. It's not giving people critical feedback because it makes you uncomfortable. It's we're going to put that on the parking lot because we don't want to talk about it because that is uncomfortable or threatening or something. So the lie economy is not comprised of malicious actors for the most part. It's comprised of regular people operating within a system that forces them to collude in this game that's played in almost all organizations. Yes, there are malicious actors. We all know who they are, and they're the ones that exploit the lie economy for their own gain. Designing productive struggle comes from this idea. It's not enough to ask people to be courageous. You must design work that requires them to be courageous. I'll say that again. It's not enough to ask people to be courageous. You must design the work so that courage is required. That is a critical and foundational component of the courage economy, and it manifests itself in designed productive struggle. I'll bring up a story I talked about a while ago, the nuclear refueling outage. So a nuclear power plant has about, I don't know, 1,000-ish people on it any given day. During normal operations, a nuclear power plant operates much like any other organization. There is a lie economy, people jockeying for position, people trying to get promoted, people, not being comfortable giving critical feedback because it makes them uncomfortable and they want to be liked, and all of the machinations and reasons that people have to lie and omit truth. But another part of the year, 3 to 6 weeks of the year, something happens on a nuclear power plant called a refueling outage. A refueling outage is when they take out the old spent uranium and they put in new uranium. They do any repairs or upgrades to the nuclear power plant that they cannot do when the reactor is running. It takes almost 2 years to create the project plan for a nuclear refueling outage. About 1,000 more people are brought onto the site. Work is done 24/7, nonstop until it is complete. A nuclear refueling outage is like the Super Bowl and the World Series all wrapped up into one in the nuclear industry. Everyone on that site is committed to a successful completion of the outage. And the reason they are is because it is critically important. It is critically important to the operation of the site. It's critically important to the operation of the fleet. And the reason everybody knows it's important is because leadership at all levels of the organization demonstrates that it's important. They talk about it, they measure it, they make time for it, they provide resources for it, they talk about it some more, they measure it some more. People are rated on their performance around it. When we talk about things and say that's important, but we don't act like it's important, then people know that it's not really that important. In an outage, people understand clearly and viscerally that success of the outage is critically important. And so, because it's treated as important, they know it's important. The importance of the work being done in the outage, the criticality of it, destroys the lie economy. So the rest of the year, much like any organization, during the outage, the environment, the culture, if you will, of the organization changes significantly. It transforms itself from a lie economy into a courage economy. People have no time for lies, no time for softened feedback, no time for omission of information, no time for any of that nonsense. It's too critical. And so from that perspective, what I learned was, and that's largely where the courage economy came from. When we designed struggle, productive struggle, such that the work is difficult and important, people respond to that very differently than they do when the work is either not important or not difficult. So if you're watching on YouTube, I have a quadrant chart I've put up right now. And what you'll see is in the top right of the quadrant chart has two axes. The bottom axis is easy to difficult, and the left axis is non-important or unimportant to important. So the top right quadrant is difficult and important. What happens when people do difficult and important work? When they do it successfully, they get a great deal of pride, achievement. They feel tremendously good about themselves and their organization that they accomplished such a thing. The lie economy does not exist in that quadrant. The other quadrants, if you have hard and unimportant work, what happens? Burnout. People cannot sustain that nonsense. If you have unimportant and easy, that's just apathy. Nothing happens there. If you have important and easy, then that is relatively complacent. You're doing some important work, but you're not moving the organization forward significantly. And so the quadrant of the courage economy is difficult and important work that people work together to accomplish, and by so doing, generate high levels of achievement, of pride, of teamwork that persists long after that hard and difficult work is over. So obviously, that work cannot continue indefinitely, right? You cannot have a 52-week outage. Human beings are not typically able to sustain such a thing. But during the important work, they're living in an environment where the courage economy exists and the lie economy disappears. So what is, when you're designing productive struggle, what does that look like? Well, it's work that's important, right? And we've defined that as work that is meaningfully significant to to moving your organization forward. So keeping the trains running on time is not important work. Necessary work, yes, not important. Something meaningfully that moves the organization in the right direction. Maybe that's improve your safety metrics by 50%. It means time to market improvement by X percent. It means whatever is most relevant and whatever makes a difference in your business and your industry, that is important work. Important work has real stakes. It has real consequences. If it doesn't have real consequences and real stakes, then definitionally it's not important. So there's another attribute of important work. It has to have real consequences. In designed productive struggle, the environment forces us to name the tension, right? There's always the conversation that happens after the meeting, right? That has to happen in the meeting. During difficult and important work, like a nuclear outage, that happens in the meeting. And so the best organizations end up scheduling that struggle, right? The work itself is the point. It's not something to be managed. It's not something to be avoided, right? Many people, when difficult and important work comes up, they say, okay, we just got to get through this. We're going to get through it. That's the wrong way to look at it. The difficulty and importance of the work is the point. So it's not something to be managed. It's something to be achieved. And there's, I think a distinct difference there. Managed sort of has the intimation that we just got to get it over with. Achieved means something different. When you're designing, so you don't have to be a nuclear power plant to have design productive struggle. You can build this into how you do your work. Pick something important. Pick something difficult. Hold on a second. Pick something important. Pick something difficult and schedule it and work through it, right? And do that over and over. Now, you don't have to, like I said, have a 45-degree angle of work going up all the time, of increased difficulty and importance. That's not possible. That's not how humans work. But if you're watching on YouTube, I have another chart up. Or if you're not watching on YouTube, I'm sorry, I have another chart up, and I call it the sine wave of effort. And that's how you should orchestrate your design productive struggle. You have one mountain to climb, hard, difficult, important work, and then there is a period of recovery, where the organization recuperates, recovers, celebrates that victory, but yet soon after, again planned, another mountain to climb. Difficult and important work, designed productive struggle. Designed productive struggle tends to kill the lie economy. And again, be sure that when you're designing your productive struggle, not only that it's difficult and hard, but that you make it important. And this is the part that a lot of leaders aren't going to like. You can't go, this hard and difficult thing, go off and do it. You have to be in it. I've seen a couple of outages. One particular outage was probably one of the most ambitious outages ever performed in the nuclear industry. The site vice president, who's the top dog at a nuclear power plant, has a choice. They can be the guy that sits in their office and gets reports, or they can be the guy that's down at the 6 o'clock meeting every day, in it with the organization. Their being in it with the organization demonstrates and shows, telegraphs to the organization that it is important. It's important to the leader, therefore it needs to be important to you. So if you're designing difficult and important work, if you're designing productive struggle and you're a leader, then you can't opt out of it, right? You have to be in it to demonstrate that it is important. You have to, again, talk about it, make time for it, measure it, measure people's performance again. Talk about it some more, measure it some more. And again, it's not never ending. It's a sprint. And then when that's done, you recover, you recuperate as an organization, you take care of all the necessary things that have to be taken care of, and then you start another one. This could be something like a nuclear power plant. It could be a department. It could be a small team. You can design productive struggle for any of them. And you don't need to be a nuclear power plant. You can be running any kind of organization, assuming that you have something important to do. And if you're an organization that wants to do things in this world, then you should have something important to do. If you have nothing important to do, well, you're not going to have a courage economy. You'll have to be satisfied with the lie economy that you currently have. All right. So I'll stop there. That was a lot. Um, Hit me up at LinkedIn, Thane Belomo. Hit me up on Substack, thane.substack.com, or at The Courage Economy. And then hit me up on my website, belomoleadership.com. On my Substack, there is resources that will allow you to help build your own courage economy, assessments, tools that you can use to do that. One announcement: book is coming out shortly. The cover is done. Next time I'll reveal the cover. I'm sure everybody's excited. I am looking for pre-readers for the book. If you are interested, please let me know in the comments, and I'll get in touch with you. And yeah, so exciting times for the courage economy. And I guess I will sign off. Thanks. See everybody.